Imagine a system where if you're black, you go through this gate, and if you're white, you go through this other gate. Should you be found as a black person using the white entrance, you would be jailed. Not the other way around, of course. In this system, your skin color literally determines how you were treated, what kind of job you get, and even where you live. Today, we're exploring the architecture of that inequality and how it still shapes a nation.
Let me describe a specific neighborhood to show you what this looks like today. White people live on the right side of the road in a middle to upper class community called Strand, filled with spacious backyards, while black people live on the left side in a dense, underserviced area called Nomzamo. It's only this one line that separates everything. Yes, they are separated just by a tiny fence. Segregation is absolutely the theme here. As you face one direction, it's extreme wealth, and right across the road, you've got the super poor. It's honestly atrocious.
Now, income disparity is common in a lot of countries today. I was in California and I saw the rich, luxurious neighborhoods of Beverly Hills right alongside the extreme poverty of places like Skid Row. I saw the exact same thing in Madagascar, the rich versus the poor, divided by a tiny fence. It exists everywhere in scale, but here in South Africa, it is just so obvious. Despite being home to Sandton, the booming diamond hub known as the richest square mile in Africa, organizations like the World Bank consistently rank this nation as the #1 most unequal country in the world out of over 160 nations.
So, I wanted to uncover the story behind the world's most unequal country. But hold on, before we continue with this, guys, I want you to look right below. You're gonna see a button that says subscribe. Over 70% of you watch and do not subscribe. So just go ahead and confirm if you are subscribed. If you're not, just click the button. It's free, it motivates us, and you help us reach our goal quicker, which is crushing 1 million subscribers this year. We have a very interesting story ahead, so let's step right back into it.
Let's see exactly how this manifests geographically. It's not just in that one neighborhood we talked about, it's all around the country. If you map it out, the yellow dots you see are where the minority white population live. That is where the most luxurious mansions are located, highly paid jobs are concentrated, and most of the homes are right by the sea. Now compare that to the black dots, where the majority of black South Africans live. They are often completely isolated from those wealthier areas. It really highlights that local quote, that one line separates everything.
We have to understand that this extreme setup was legally constructed. The reason for all this goes way back to the Apartheid era. Introduced in the late 1940s, the word comes from Afrikaans meaning apartness. Its main objective was an official system of governance enforcing strict racial segregation to empower only one race in the country. The government classified citizens to dictate exactly where they could live, work, or even travel.
South Africa was originally occupied and colonized by Britain and the Dutch. Before the big wars, many African people joined forces with the British, believing that if the British won, they were going to gain freedom. The British did win, but instead of freedom, many locals were essentially turned into slaves and laborers. The system formally hardened into apartheid in 1948 and wasn't fully abolished until 1994 after Nelson Mandela was finally released from Robben Island.
But the real turning point for inequality was actually introduced by the British in 1913, known as the Land Act. With the Land Act, it literally meant that 80% of South Africa was handed to white people, when they didn't even make up 5% of the population. So the country is still stuck trying to unwind that terrifying math today.
30 years after apartheid ended, the extremes are mind-blowing.
You have the super wealthy from Camps Bay, a billionaire coastline loaded with $10 million mansions bought up by foreign investors living a 300,000 rand a month kind of lifestyle. But then, just down the road in the Cape Flats and marginal townships like Khayelitsha, the circumstances are bleak. 40% of the population lives below the breadline. Locals are entirely priced out of their own country's beautiful coastlines.
And the physical separation is literally still being constructed. There have even been talks of building a massive 180 million rand security wall along the N2 highway near the airport. Now this stretch is nicknamed the Hell Run because motorists are often targeted by criminals. But locals will tell you this wall is just a way of hiding poverty from arriving tourists rather than solving the actual root causes of the crime.
This brings us to a wildly controversial modern exception.
Now, apartheid in this country doesn't exist legally anymore because the citizens fought so hard against it. But if that is true, why do places like Orania still exist? Orania is a whites-only town. Black people cannot live or work here. Every job is reserved for the whites. They utilize private security, operate their own banks and currency, and strictly prohibit outside labor.
If you ask the residents, they'll say we are creating a new territory within South Africa, an Afrikaner territory. We'll take the responsibility of that for ourselves. To them, it's not about hate, it's an independent attempt to preserve their culture without government interference.
But as you can imagine, to the outside world, it serves as a very stark, very painful reminder of the exact segregation the rest of the country bled to dismantle.
What happens to a society forced to live like this today?
The lack of economic mobility is crushing, and it creates a desperate cycle. It's the kind of environment where everyday conversations sound like, "Bro, can you lend me some money? I'll pay you back next month." But next month comes and it's, "You said you'd pay me back and I still haven't seen a single cent from you." In historical places like Soweto, official unemployment is 35%, but the local community will tell you the reality is significantly higher.
When I mentioned Khayelitsha earlier, I was actually warned by locals not to go there. The symptoms of this massive unemployed population are heartbreaking. You see high crime, devastating gang violence, and escalating drug addiction just to escape reality. Plus, a deep distrust of the police often leads to communities taking things into their own hands through mob justice.
This quote hits the nail on the head regarding the raw frustration out there right now. They gave us political power, and then they take the economic power. We fought, you find out now we live in the shacks. That desperation is fueling rising xenophobia, as many frustrated locals are turning their anger towards other African nationals, fighting over the very few jobs and resources left in a system still defined by scarcity.
So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. When you look at the tiny fences, the separate gates, and the massive wealth gaps that still exist, has the nation truly moved on? Can a country successfully heal when its citizens are still living day to day inside the literal blueprints of its past?